If I am to summarize the Canadian federal election that was held on Monday in one simple word, it would be embarrassing. Embarrassing for the Conservative Party of Canada, embarrassing for the nation itself. How is it that you can look around at the degradation of this once great nation over the past 10 years under unencumbered liberal tyranny and think, you know what? We need some more of that. Well, I would be a little bit more furious if it wasn't totally expected. Now, if you guys have been listening to my political commentary, that side of the channel that used to be a big focus of it, but has since shifted over, and it's done so mostly because I have no faith in the federal government, okay? And it's been that way for a very, very long time. The last time we were a proper nation, had a proper leader, it was Stephen Harper, and he was being derided by the media as ballooning in weight. That was about the most apt criticism that they could levy at the guy that navigated this country through the big economic collapse of 2008, when I ended up making the most money I ever had working in the oil and gas industry. During that couple of years when the entire world was crumbling, yeah, the guy who actually navigated that crisis, not this fun individual who is now the Prime Minister, Mark Carney. He's taken all of this false valor, thinking that, oh yeah, when I was in charge of the banks, I was navigating this stuff. It was the people that were in charge under the previous Conservative Party leadership, not this wannabe man, not any of these pretenders that have been there during the interim. And this is the first, okay? This is the first federal election. I think I might have missed a couple of civic ones that really didn't much matter in the grand scheme of things, but this is the first federal election that I purposefully and meaningfully sat out because my representative, okay, Chris Workington, one of the longest serving members of Parliament, full stop, okay? He has done nothing. And this is something that I made very public, and I promised to myself all the way back in 2020 and 2021. Anybody who is standing by and anybody who endorsed any of those awful, terrible, vile policies that locked everybody down, that closed businesses, that wrought economic ruin, that caused shipping disasters and false scarcity, I would never reward their cowardice with my vote. And in 2021, the last time we had a federal election, I voted for the People's Party of Canada candidate Sean McLean, and he ended up not in second place, not in third place, but in fourth place this time around. I do believe in 2021 he finished in third place, and Chris Workington was elected for, like a fifth time or something like that. This do-nothing asshole. So I was also looking up his credentials, what he's done, okay, during his time in Parliament, and, well, allow me just a short moment of your time to read off his accomplishments. There you go. There. That's all he's accomplished since he was first elected in 2006. I couldn't even vote for the motherfucker at that point in time, okay? Not because I was not available, I was out working or something like that. No, I was 16 at the time. I'm a 35-year-old man, and he's seeking re-election on a career of doing nothing. He's been with the Conservative Party of Canada since Stephen Harper, Andrew Scheer, Aaron O'Toole, and now the unemployed Pierre Poilievre. This guy is such a fucking phony, dude. And there was a small contingent of people that could see through him. Jack Posobiec, I'll go ahead and take him at his word on this one. I didn't see him really rah-rah cheerlead for him, okay, just saying that, Canada's kind of boned if you don't get a proper government, but never properly, putting any stock behind him, which is exactly where I was at. I didn't trust him, and you know what? He really, really pissed me off after the Freedom Convoy in Ottawa back in 2022. He never once went out there and met with any of those truckers, and instead grandstand and made a stupid fucking video after Trudeau enacted the Emergencies Act and cleared that place out, froze bank accounts. He decided to use that as a campaign talking point. Fuck you. You were never going to get my vote. And now there's a bunch of, smooth brains that are out there going, oh, look at all of the people that were signed up in this riding to run. It's so funny. A liberal apparently won that riding, and it was another one of those 90 names that were on the ballot. They could go ahead and parse out that name, but they couldn't find Pierre's name on there, and then that's somehow electioneering and that's election interference. No. This dude lost fair and square. That's why I said this election is embarrassing, because it was really just a one-issue election, and we'll get into that because that ended up driving the day and driving this country into the fucking dirt. So yeah, he fumbled a 20-point lead. He fumbled all the goodwill, mostly because he didn't want to differentiate himself from the Liberal Party. He wanted to go ahead and march in lockstep, and basically, here were your choices in Canada. Would you like a glass of water that's got a little bit of blue dye in it or a little bit of red dye in it? That's basically what we're dealing with up here. It is absolutely abhorrent. No, to just really drive this home, like, that's just not my feelings taking over. I've seen a bunch of different clips from this hack talk, okay? It's basically the Liberal Party of Canada's platform with a couple of extra steps. No, he wasn't going to tax you into the dirt with a stupid multi-tiered carbon tax, but no, he was more than willing to just open up the borders and continue to flood this country with every out-of-work call center employee that you can go ahead and find, turning Canada into North India. Which, if you take a look at the elected members of the Conservative Party of Canada, if you want to talk about representation and diversity being our strength, you go ahead and take a look at 20 select individuals, which we'll also look at, because this is going to be a somewhat comprehensive look as to what happened, what went down, and why things went so incredibly sideways. Because, yeah, Pierre could be the Prime Minister. He could have. There was a clear path forward. How many open and honest Conservatives have been elected in the past 24 months? You have Javier Milei down there in Argentina, absolutely wrecking shop. You have Bukele out there in, El Salvador. And then, yeah, you have Trump there, obviously, which is also going to play into a lot of the stupidity that played out on Monday evening. But if you would have just simply differentiated yourself from the pack instead of just playing it close to the chest and just going, hey, the Liberals are going a little bit too fast, you better pump the brakes. This is a 100 speed zone, okay, you better just go ahead and drive 98 to be safe. That's the Conservative Party. That's the way that it's been for most of my life, sans that couple of years that Stephen Harper was in charge. It's not like this guy was a super radical or anything like that. He was just somebody who had a platform, enacted it, and actually left the country in a better place than he found it. But Pierre Poilievre and the CPC inner circle jerk, instead of pivoting and reaching out to Canadians at grassroots levels, decided to gamble the election on pandering, to Khalistani voters at the expense of grassroots support and many other communities. Because I seen him, okay, like his campaign trail brought him to the West once. He held one event in Edmonton, and the rest of it was out east, and probably for pretty good reason, mostly because if you want to hear people bitch, moan, whine, and complain about the Electoral College in the United States, there's good reason that it's in place, because you take a look, and we will, as how the federal government is distributed across this gigantic country, yeah, you're going to see why the West is in such unrest. This is one of the best chances, yes, the CPC had to win in years. Next election will be much harder. The only way the CPC will have another chance at forming a government is to purge its elitist and spineless pandering insiders, which is exactly why I wasn't going to vote for Workington, okay? He was obviously going to win, and he got 82% of the fucking vote, okay? He crushed everybody else. Basically, by me sitting on the sidelines, I just kind of wanted to show that, unless you're going to put an actual conservative in this riding, if you're going to have somebody run for your party, have them stand for something instead of just collect a paycheck for just about 20 years and do nothing. You're the shadow secretary for agriculture. Fantastic stuff. That's the best use of representing your riding, one of the strongholds of the natural gas and oil sectors in the entire country. Yeah, just stick them on farming. The fuck is wrong with you? I mean, you take a look at this, right?
For a proud Canadian flag. Canada first for a change. Let's bring it home. Now get out and vote. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
I mean, he's wearing the fucking headscarf. This is the exact same shit we clowned Justin Trudeau for doing. Dude, I used that picture in multiple thumbnails of him. Yeah, the orange headscarf. The only thing that Pierre is missing is just the blackface pictures. But yeah, you take a look. You take a look at the Conservative Party of Canada. Does that scream Canadian to you? It's unfucking believable. No, yeah, leave it up to Theo Fleury to point out, okay, cool. If it wasn't just a strict, we can't vote for the Conservatives because they're basically Trump light, this is what we're voting for. The worst housing affordability ever, skyrocketing national debt, rampant inflation, homelessness in 10 cities, violent crime rates soaring, opioid deaths on the rise, healthcare system breakdown, bank account freezes during protests, ethics scandal, censorship of citizens, food bank use at record highs, excessive government spending, 25-year high interest rates, reckless immigration policy, and they wanted all of that and more because the guy that Trudeau handpicked is even worse on multiple of those points. I don't quite think we're going to have the same level of ethics violations, but who knows, man? Former banker, probably a few white-collar crimes in his past, but are they ever going to get prosecuted? Fuck no! The one good thing to come out on the day is that the NDP party, because the NDP no longer, the party's over, pal. Party's over, pal, because they no longer have the seats required. Okay, you needed 12, you ended up with 8. You're no longer a federally recognized party. Jack Layton's tumor-riddled corpse is spinning right now at what this hack did, because back when Layton was in charge of the party, okay, it was a much more, they still had their socialist proclivities, don't get me wrong, but they at least had an appeal to the working class, okay? What Jagmeet Singh has done to that party, holy shit, man. Not even the most conservative in name only, Mitt Romney-esque, a try-hard conservatives could have possibly ever done to any incarnation of a supposed right-wing party. But yes, he lost his seat, just like Pierre, but it was a far more stark victory, okay? So yeah, he announces that he's going to be stepping down from the leadership of the party that no longer is there, so I guess that's a distinction without a difference. But I'm also hearing rumblings, and nothing that I can confirm, at least at time of recording, that Pierre is going to be, you know, peacing out. It seems like somebody out of Edmonton could potentially be stepping down and giving him their riding. Like, what the fuck? Somebody who fumbled that bad and you're going to reward him? That's why it's just, I can't stand this shit. I cannot stand this shit. Because the Canada I grew up and loved, this is what it's being turned into. Okay, we've seen the pictures before. We've seen all the pandering. That's before. And yeah, that's an Edmonton Southeast riding. I'm just trying to piece that out in my mind. But at one point in time, that might have been where I was, that riding might be where I was born. And there would be a riding, okay, in Edmonton, Mill Hood, so I guess where would that be? It's Millwoods, but, you know, if you know, you know, and if you don't worry about it, but that would have been right in on and around West Edmonton Mall, okay? What would that be, the northwest, the northeast, northwest corner? I can't quite piece it out. I think northeast, where, yeah, there were a lot of Indians that were there, so that wouldn't look too terribly out of place, but as it's pointed out, Canada added 6 million people in a decade, almost all through immigration. Now Liberals are clinging to power in razor-thin margins and immigrant-heavy GTA ridings, exactly in the way that it shakes out. This is exactly what we end up funding out west. Saskatchewan, Alberta, and BC end up bearing the burden of the Greater Toronto Area. There you go. That's where all the decisions are made, and that's where the Liberals do all of their campaigning. That's where they're most popular, because you take a look at the rest of the country, and brother, it is still very much a moderate right-wing country. Not everybody's going to be as radical as I am, okay? Well, for better or for worse, okay? And what I advocate for isn't even that extreme, but it would be to people like this who are already freaking out and voted based on their emotions. But hey, you take a look, okay, the breakdown that's here, and the way that this is just, it's almost baffling, but there's a reason why there's no meaningful and substantive change, okay? It's the same conversation that pops up every single time, every 4 years in the United States in regards to the Electoral College. Oh, people vote, land doesn't, so why do we have such disparate representation for the, you know, those flyover states? They want what we have in Canada. Look at that. The population of the Maritimes, Newfoundland, Labrador, Prince Edward Island, Nova Scotia, and New Brunswick is approximately 1.9 million people. And simply anecdotal evidence, specifically when I was working in the oil field, you had a lot of people from Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Newfoundland, and from Prince Edward Island all coming over here, still registered residents of wherever they came from out east, but would come over here, pilfer out of the west. They would do good work, not disparaging the guys themselves, because worked with a lot of very good ones. It's just they always carried their ties to home. They were always sending back a certain amount of their earnings out east, because the only time that you can make money in the Maritimes is, in the summer months when you can go out and fish, and then for the other 6 months out of the year, they sit at home and collect EI. You wonder why they vote Liberal over and over and over and over and over again. But between all of those provinces, which yes, amount to 1.9 million people, which may or may not be true, they might just simply be registered to vote there and then are working in the productive provinces, they have 32 seats. 32 seats, which, of course, if you're comparing this to United States politics, it doesn't really seem like all that much. But then you take a look at Alberta's population reaching 5 million in 2025. There's 34 seats here. Make that one make sense. Oh, right. Wonderful amounts of gerrymandering. Because as Grand Prairie has grown as a city, we ended up, because when I first started voting, I forget specifically when that change was implemented, but there was a Mackenzie riding and I think a Grand Prairie specific riding. Though there was 2 different ridings that was drawn down. It was a little bit less than half of the city, but that's the way that it was. And now, for the past couple of election cycles, it has just been all encompassed and it just runs up a vast swath. I would say, honestly, like that entire riding probably accounts for 80,000 people. How does that one make sense when you have little GTA ridings like that in no uncertain terms would house that many people? But okay, as we've seen how diversity is our strength, and that ended up driving a bunch of the decisions that ended up going the way for the Conservative Party in one respect, and there were a few other Liberal victories because of that, and now we're just going to have to reckon with even more of that nonsense moving forward, because Carney is a whole hog. It's not like Pierre wasn't either. Just go ahead, bring your culture, bring your people, but leave your conflicts at home. What a fucking dork. You're supposed to be the conservative guy. You're supposed to be the one like Stephen Harper was out there advocating, okay, cool, you want to come into our country? You better bring some skills. You better add to the country, because if you're just coming here to come here, better fuck off. You keep your shit at home. You fucking make your own place better. No, we got to take a look at the other demographic that is leading us down to financial and cultural ruin. Look at the boomers fucking it up once again. Canadian woman says she voted Liberal to take down Donald Trump. Excuse me. I know I didn't go vote this time around, so I didn't necessarily have my hands on a ballot, but knowing the people that were running, 6 names on the ballot that I could have voted for up here, a bunch of cackling hens representing parties that I absolutely detest. I could have voted for all of those, but I decided not to. But I don't really think that Trump's name was on the ballot there at all whatsoever, but this has been the spin from the media. That's another aspect of this that I haven't been able to bring in, but it makes a whole hell of a lot of sense, because all of these boomers, and we'll take a look at it, and no, I'm not using that just as a catch-all term. It's legitimately who voted this way. People who are so fucking brain-rotted by being indoctrinated by CBC on their TV, in their cars, listening to it as they go down to the civic center to the doctor's appointment, turning on CTV or Sportsnet and just being inundated with all the diversity as our strength. Fuck, it's all over the branding of the once great CFL as well. Absolutely insane that our professional sports league is pushing all of these political talking points, just like Black Lives Matter in the States. When Trudeau was first elected, I had this thought in my mind. I can't back up, and you might think that I'm pulling tales like this out of my ass, but yeah, when Trudeau got anointed in 2015, it's like, oh cool, we're just like the States on a time delay. We just got our Barack Obama, and oh wait, it's actually even worse than that, because there is no come around this time. It's just, this is going to be a more refined campaign of misinformation, lies, slander, and propaganda. Because how is it that you have turned an election like this? The 2025 election very much mirrors the 2015 election, because if you were around and if you were paying attention, or hell, even if you just turn, your searches to a certain point in time, there was one big issue on the ballot in 2015 that drove a bunch of people to the polls. It was legalized marijuana, and we're paying the ultimate cost for that, the flood of fentanyl, not just into American streets, okay? One of the big reasons that Trump is like, shore up your border, okay? Then we'll just, talk about tariffs at a later date, but that drove everybody to the negotiation table, and just stop letting that shit flow through, because you take a look at Vancouver, when you're not having to dodge vehicles at street fairs, got to go ahead and dodge poop and the homeless rolling around on the public streets. Yeah, Vancouver is just like Seattle and Portland rolled into one. The shitty weather of Seattle and the awful politics of Portland. Toronto, hell, it's basically like New York and Chicago had a kid. Fucking gun violence everywhere. Murders aplenty, overdoses around every corner, but no. We don't want any more of that truth coming our way. We need to go ahead and deal with the orange man, okay?
I think who I voted for would be the best to take care of Trump, because Trump is, I'm sorry to say, an ass, and he shouldn't even be president of the United States. But because he is, we need a strong person so that we could stand strong.
Imagine thinking that the party that was in charge during his first administration, that you think didn't handle controlling Trump, because he came back, because he's the bane of the entire free world, right? Imagine thinking that they can handle him better. Holy shit, man. And no, this isn't just a one-off thing. This is all of the exit polls, okay? A Gen Z, I can't afford food or a home, and our country is being flooded with millions of foreigners. Amen. Those are my talking points. Every time that I go to the store, things are increasing in price. The idea of me owning a home in Grand Prairie, oh my fucking God, that is so far in the rearview mirror, I don't even know where to begin. And a country being flooded with millions of foreigners, again, anecdotal evidence, but whenever I go out to the store, I very much feel like a minority. My nation is being ripped away from me. Yeah, and it has been for the past 10 years. Congratulations, it's the Liberal Party with a complete and total victory. Yet again, you have boomers. Yeah, I'm going to vote because Trump is basically Hitler. Because, you take a look, okay, the most important factors when you're deciding to vote, an exit poll, abacus data, you can take a look at CTV, CBC, any of the exit polls out there. And it's so funny, right? Like managing the federal budget and deficit and debt, protecting public services. You look at all of this commie shit in the red, the over 60 group, and even just throw in, the 45 to 59 age range. But growing the economy, the over 60s don't really care all that much. Improving Canada's, dilapidated and pathetic healthcare system that drives out hardworking and competent healthcare workers to other places around the world, and then you just get replaced with the ones, hello, hello, Mr. Don, I hear you have this, I hear you have this sore shoulder. Can I put you on a list? Here's some painkillers. Okay, and a little personal information, a little peek behind the curtain. My mother has needed, rotator cuff surgery, okay? She has been recommended to a specialist and pushed through the system for a while now. And you might think, what's a while? A few weeks, a month or so? Oh no, 2 years. Yeah, 2 years. She has been waiting. She has been waiting to get a scan, and she has been waiting to see a specialist. That's your universal healthcare system for you. Hopefully it fixes yourself, or you'll just die. Or hey, we might be able to facilitate one of those things a little bit quicker than the other in order to just open your spot up for Jeet and Jinder, who just came across the border. I hate this shit so fucking much, because you got all of these 45 to 60 plus year old boomers who care about reducing the cost of living because a senior's pension isn't that much. And what's the biggest issue? Dealing with Donald Trump. It's a one issue election, and the fucking government and the fucking media were incredibly effective in pushing that one thing. Okay, cool. Let's just say, theoretically, you get to the negotiating table. You sit down with Trump and you're going to deal with them. What chips does Canada have to play? Because what are we looking at moving forward? Well, we're looking at a future that, I'll let the asshole speak for himself.
You demanded action, and now it's time for the financial sector to deliver. To reach net zero, every country, every company, every bank, every investor, every pension fund around the world will need to make some big changes. In the run-up to COP26 in Glasgow, we have an enormous opportunity to bring climate change into the heart of every financial decision. And our plan will manage the risks from climate change while helping to seize the opportunities from a newer, greener economy. The UK has been at the forefront of innovation for centuries.
The fuck does that have to do with anything? Okay, cool. Yeah, no, Trump was at the center of our elections, but yeah, the UK has been doing some fun stuff when it comes to climate change. It's the exact same stuff that Biden did in his first year or so of taking over in 2021. We're just gonna go ahead and redefine what it means to measure our accomplishments. Like, we could use those old, outdated, traditional metrics, but instead we can just go ahead and, imbibe by what kind of societal impact are we making. That's exactly what's happening here. Climate change needs to be at the center of every economic and financial decision that we make. And you know what that ends up meaning? That means that Canada's major resource, our biggest bargaining chip, just went up in fucking smoke.
And we will have to remain the barrier not to be crossed, protecting French language and secularity of the state in Quebec. And
we need to protect French language. I beg your pardon. Biggest sucks to the government tit care of Alberta equalization payments. Oh, okay, cool, great.
Different model in immigration, which has to be successful, and the fact that there's no future for oil and gas, at least in Quebec and probably everywhere, and this has to be said and protected. I have a brand new weapon to do that. Mr. Bonin will.
No more future for oil and gas development in Quebec and probably the rest of Canada. So, when Carney gets to the negotiating table, or his emissary, whoever he sends there to deal with Trump, America wants our lands, our resources, our water, our country. Those are not idle threats. President Trump trying to break us so that America can own us. That will never happen. Well, when you don't bring anything to the table, it's going to be really fucking easy if he decides to roll tanks. You stupid bitch. Do you know who your biggest trade partner is? Do you know who you're landlocked with? Do you know who's protecting your ass from an invasion from around the world? Do you understand who you are inexorably linked with? Apparently not. Or maybe you do behind the scenes, but you're just putting up a strong front because that ended up duping enough fucking boomers and jeets out there to fucking vote for you. I cannot believe how this country has been so motivated by emotions and vibes for another election cycle. You did it in 2015. It brought nothing but ruin, decay, and disgust for a whole goddamn decade. And you're doing it again just because Orange Man is bad, because that's what the TV says. That's what the radio says. That's what everything from Canada says. You're not using your fucking brains. You're just parroting what these paid propagandists, CTV, CBC, City TV, Rogers, Bell, all of them get subsidized by the federal government. Go take a look at it. You can go ahead and validate anything that I'm saying, because I know it's fucking fact. And that's why I'm so goddamn fed up. I am so fed up at this stuff. And one of the earliest videos I did on the channel was just looking at what was going on when it came to potentially breaking the West from the East and having a brand new start at this. I kind of dismissed it. Well, actually, I very much did dismiss it as just being an ill thought out plan, mostly because I thought that, you know what, there could be some hope out here. Okay, yeah, that we're in the doldrums of this lockdown, but you know what? I thought that there was going to be somebody to rise up and go, you know what happened during that time? That shit was stupid. Okay, we're never going back to that stuff again. That was an overreaction, and the people that are in charge need to pay. That's why I so strongly support the government of Alberta. That's why whenever I'm asked where I'm from, I say that I'm an Albertan. I never say that I'm a Canadian, because Canada is not representative of my or the greater Albertan values. So in 2023, when there was a provincial election, you bet your sweet ass that I went down there, and to be completely honest, I can't remember the MLA that I voted for, but I believe in the vision of Danielle Smith and the Alberta Conservative Party, because she has a clear vision for this province. And honestly, her response to the election on Monday night was 1,000 times better than any concession speech about Pierre not really wanting to give up power. Oh, I'll try to weasel my way back in so I could just go ahead and collect a little bit more money. I can make a couple of, a few more viral clips out there. I could, chomp on a banana next time. Maybe I'll have somebody press my head down for it, because that'll be a little bit more apt to describe his political acumen. It's pathetic. But I congratulate Prime Minister Mark Carney on his minority government election victory last night. So yeah, long story short, I don't think I highlighted this at the beginning, but there's a strong possibility that Canadians will be heading back to the polls. But if it's just going to be a rehash, it's just going to be another rehash, because in 2021, He ended up with ostensibly the exact same outcome, a Liberal minority government, but because the NDP had something in the way of seats in Parliament, they could just go ahead and buddy up and fuck the country for 4 years, and that's what they ended up doing. This time, the party that ends up holding the deciding votes is the Bloc Québécois, and we just heard from that leader who was talking about, oh yeah, we're just going to turn off the spigots of the oil and gas, so do you really think they're going to line up with the Conservatives? I don't fucking think so. But yes, I want to sincerely thank Pierre for his powerful and principled advocacy against the last decade's punitive taxation and anti-resource policies that have made our country weaker, more divided, and overly dependent on the United States. Well, yeah. That was one thing that he did champion. I got to go ahead and give him credit where credit is due. Not exactly a unique idea, but it is one that he took up himself in getting rid of the carbon tax, or at least going ahead and put pressure on Carney, at least until the election was over, because I was talking about taxing everybody out the asshole and fair and equitable treatment and climate change at the heart of everything, which we all know what that means. Pierre's vision for a safer, more affordable, united, and prosperous Canada drove the policy debate in this country for the last several years and inspired millions to see the unique potential of our nation. While the Liberals and New Democrats demeaned and demonized Albertans, our values are industries for political gain. Pierre made empowering Albertans and our energy sector a cornerstone of his campaign. It was so nice that he was there and actually talked to real Albertans. His respect and admiration for Albertans could not have been clearer. He is and continues to be a true friend of Alberta. Yeah, that's why he's probably going to end up stealing a seat from somebody who legitimately won. As Premier, I invite the Prime Minister to immediately commence working with our government to reset the relationship between our Ottawa and Alberta with meaningful action rather than hollow rhetoric. A large majority of Albertans are deeply frustrated that the same government that overtly attacked our political economy almost unabated for the past 10 years has been returned to government. Fucking based. As Premier, I will not permit the status quo to continue. Albertans are proud Canadians and want this nation to be strong, prosperous, and united, but we will no longer tolerate having our industries threatened and our resources landlocked by Ottawa, which is exactly what's going to happen. In the weeks and months ahead, Albertans will have an opportunity to discuss our province's future. Keep that in mind for a moment and assess various options for strengthening and protecting our province against the future hostile acts from Ottawa, and to ultimately choose a path forward. As Premier, I will facilitate and lead this discussion and process with the sincere hope of securing a prosperous future for our province within a united Canada that respects our province's constitutional rights, facilitates rather than blocks the development and export of our abundant resources, and treats us as a valued and respected partner within Confederation. Our government will be holding a special caucus meeting this Friday to discuss the matter further. I will have more to say after that meeting is concluded, and one thing that could very much end up being on the docket is separation. Legitimately, it seems like it's going to be on the ballot because, yeah, a Liberal minority government. You take a look at the great province of Alberta and you realize that there are 3 ridings out of those 34, right? Here's where I'm at right there. And, the Conservative Party winning by 40,000 votes makes me sick to my fucking stomach. But 3 ridings out of the entire country, out of the entire province, and hopefully a future country or maybe joining another one by very slim margins. All of our thoughts and desires. And it's so stupid, man. Like, you take a look at these places like Peace River. Okay, look at the size of that riding. How can one person actively and effectively represent that? Okay, you got Yellowhead that's gonna have Banff, Jasper, rather large cities. Well, even Lloydminster, Medicine Hat, Lethbridge, all of these. Yeah, Lethbridge right there. One riding for a city that almost has 100,000 people. Red Deer, there's got to be Red Deer around here. Yeah, Leduc. Okay, so that's where that's where I was born. Yeah, but Red Deer having one riding, and that's the 3rd largest city in the entire province. I guess absolutely buck-ass wild. But yeah, reading a little bit of this before we take off. The Liberals' 4th straight federal election win keeps Alberta and Ottawa on a collision course, raising the once unthinkable prospect of a referendum on the Prairies province's separation from Canada. At the time of election call, the Liberals were leading in just 2 of Alberta's 37 ridings. That's the way that it ended up shaking out. One other NDP seat in, what was that, goofy-ass Calgary, which used to be, oh no, that was in Edmonton. Okay, so just one Liberal coming out of Calgary, and everything else is just all copacetic. Cameron Davies, ex-UCP organizer who supports Alberta's independence, said he was disgusted by the Liberal campaign's use of tired national cliches, which he said made light of serious issues facing Federation. or facing the Federation. Hockey and nostalgia doesn't pay the bills. That hockey and nostalgia, it's not going to keep Canada together. No, elbows up. If I see that anymore, to me, it incites the same type of visceral disgust that when I hear, no, he's not the stepdad, he's the dad who steps up, because Alberta's essentially getting cucked by Canada, because we do all the work, and Ottawa, Ontario, Quebec, and the Atlantic provinces end up reaping all of the benefits. So fucking why? Tired of being in this puppeted province. Without a reimagined confederation, there will be a strong separatist movement in Alberta, which maybe they end up talking about on Friday, because there's this little snippet of information which gives me a little bit more hope. Okay, Premiere Smith unveils a major update to the Citizens Initiative Act. Now only 177,000 signatures are needed to trigger a referendum on Alberta independence, down from 600,000. Plus, the signature collection period extends from 90 to 120 days. I mean, things in Alberta could be getting spicy here over the summer. Okay, now here's the thing. I think that 600,000 signatures, that seems like a lot, especially in a province that has, just over 5 million people, and Calgary and Edmonton are still a little bit flumpy. They definitely have the proclivities of other large cities around the country, around the world, and if you know, you know, and if you don't, well, where were the two places that had non-conservative representatives come out? I rest my case. But I still think, after this dicking that we have received, after the turnout in this recent election, and specifically how things shook out in the provincial election in 2023, I don't think that the 600,000 signatures would have been that monumental to reach, but 177, I mean, that's cakewalk, and I will definitely, and if this ends up going to a referendum, oh boy, you can bet your ass my name is going to be on that list, because as it sits right now under the Liberal government's thumb, I don't see a future. I'm 35, like I said before, just turned it in March, and I've seen what the Liberal government has done early in my life, when there was a back and forth power balance between the Conservatives and the Liberals after Jean Chrétien ended up leaving, and then there was a scuffle between Harper and Paul Martin for a minute. I've seen what they do, their greedy ways, and then that just simply being ratcheted up tenfold under Trudeau for this past decade. And honestly, I don't think Canada can survive another decade, another 4 years of this bullshit. And if Alberta wants to go ahead and say deuces, Saskatchewan wants to hop on, and most of BC thinks that that's a cool idea, let's fucking do it. Let's do something that is actually putting Alberta first, actually putting Albertans first, and then leaving all of those tit suckers out to dry. So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.